Okay.
Okay, you're live there.
Hey everyone, welcome. I'm Susan Smith. You are in my studio, Stitched by Susan. I'm coming to you live each and every day for the entire month of April and maybe even a bit into May with topics that relate to machine quilting. Just an honest look at some of my favorite tools and techniques and tips. I'm standing at my long arm, who's named Stella, right now, but some of these tips are going to relate to sit-down machines as well. I don't have a sit-down long arm, but I do occasionally quilt at my domestic sewing machine. So this is kind of in honor of the fact that near the end of this month, I'm opening enrollment to my freehand quilting masterclass, which I just open up twice a year. And this year is special because it has always been, all the demos have been at the long arm and only at the long arm, just for the sake of ease at the camera and various reasons. And because I quilt so much at a long arm and very little at a domestic machine, that felt easier for me, and it was sort of what I knew. But many of you ask me every time, do these translate into a sit-down machine? How can I make this work for my sit-down machine? So in answer to that, I've been buffing up my skills back at my domestic machine, and I'm going to be demoing quite a lot of the designs, as many as I possibly can, also at the sit-down machine, just to show you that they do translate, and if you need to make changes to scale or size or how you handle a quilt top at that machine. So all of that is coming up in the new edition of the Freehand Quilting Masterclass coming to you later this month. Today's topic is plexiglass audition sheets. That's a bit of a tongue twister. I don't know if you've ever seen this done before, but this is a marvel. I'm not even sure where I learned it, probably from another quilter early on, but I've had these for years and love them. A very simple 1/8" plexiglass sheet, a dry erase marker, and a piece of scrap batting for my eraser. Here are some of the ways I use this. When I'm working at my long arm, or if I was working at my sit-down machine, I would perhaps have my quilt top laying on a table, and I use it as a way to audition my quilting designs. So whether I want to choose, do I want design A or design B or design C, this is where I draw it with my trusty dry erase marker, and I can determine if I like it or not. If I'm doing an edge-to-edge design, I might use this to determine what size I want to quilt it at. Do I want big flowers? Do I want little flowers? Do I want, what? And if I'm doing a custom design, then I would definitely use it to determine what's going to be in each block and what might the background fill be. I'm just going to try and get my computer to stay awake over here so I can get comments, you guys. There's lots of comments coming in. I'll pop back and read them in a second. Okay, so we're trying out quilting for custom. Also, when I use it, because I quilt for clients quite a lot, I will send them photographs of the sheets and say, do you like this design? Do you like this idea? Or if it's custom quilting, I have several boards like this. I think I have 4. I might actually put different designs on different boards to compare them. I can send the pictures to the client if I want to, but even just for my own reference, I can try out several different things. It's been a lifesaver for me because far easier to erase this when you don't like it than to unpick stitching, right? So I'm thinking back to a quilt, for example. I wish it was easier to show you pictures, but I'm thinking back to a quilt where it had kind of an 8" solid block in it, and I was trying to decide what to put in it. And I tried several different things out and quickly realized some of them either had a bunch of thread breaks, or there was no easy way to travel, or there were too many curves and it was too distracting. And just seeing it on the design board at the appropriate size for the block, that became evident to me just looking at it on my plexiglass sheet without stitching it out and then having to unpick it because I wasn't happy with it. So it has saved me a ton of headache in that way. So here are a few more details about it. I just have 1/8" thick, and my sheets are 18 inches this way by 24 this way. Yours might be a little different, but for me, that was about as big as I could go and lay it on my long arm, because often I'll actually have a quilt loaded and I'll be trying out different things with my dry erase marker while I stand here with my sheet laying on it. So that seemed like a good all-purpose size for me. I was able to find them at my local hardware store already pre-cut in that size, so that made it super duper easy. Amazon sometimes has them and sometimes not, but start at your local hardware store or they may cut them for you if you have a preferred size. Then too, this ugly bit around the outside is just silver duct tape. I strongly recommend that you do that to one side of your board. Put a frame on it. It keeps you from inadvertently drawing off with your marker, right? Because these are permanent on fabric, trust me. So it gives you that little barrier at the edge, and it also helps you to know what side is up. So there's a right and a wrong side, and I never draw on both sides. I only draw on the side that has the tape. I don't want any of that residue to ever be coming off on the fabric of my quilts, right? And then my eraser is just a little piece of scrap batting, and when it gets dingy and gray, get a fresh one. Okay, let's have a look at your comments. Look at my fancy camera. It follows me when I move. I'm just in awe. Hi. Betsy, Nita, Joe, I need a plexiglass preview. They're so great, so great. Mary Ellen, Sharon, Rocket Knight, Debbie. Mary Ellen is saying you can use the design ideas. Let me see if I can throw this up. You can use the design ideas on your board and crowdsource if you can't decide how to quilt it. I love that. You can get input from your friends. Yes, Debbie is saying she did this and it came in handy for her last quilt. Great. And Anne is chiming in. This is a good point. Anne says, I learned this tip from you and use it to help maintain quilting design size. This is one of the tips I offer in my masterclass, and you're going to get it here for free today, is that if I'm quilting an overall edge-to-edge design and I'm starting at the top of my quilt, most of us tend to either go smaller and smaller and smaller as we advance down the quilt, or larger and larger and larger. But it's difficult to maintain consistent size. And of course, when you've rolled up your quilt and you can't see that earlier bit anymore, how do you know what size it was? Well, that's an option. Draw it out to scale on your plexiglass sheet or even a piece of paper and set it beside you and refer back to it every so often to make sure that your flowers, your feathers, your whatever are staying a consistent size to what you started with at the beginning of the quilt. Let's get my mouse in action here. Colleen, hi. Wilma, Paulette. Paulette is asking if the new updated stitching demos, because I've been talking the last few days about re-recording, if they're going to be added to the masterclass for earlier class members. Yes, they are. Everyone will have access to all the new stuff. Yes, indeed. Donna, hello. Johanna, hello from Tasmania. Awesome. It must be well on into the day for you. Veronica, let me throw this one up because I love it. Just used mine today to figure out how to quilt Highland cow hair. I love Highland cows. They're amazing on cakes, on quilts, everywhere I see them. Spokane Dave, that's my husband. He's chiming in on all the different platforms. Awesome. Well, that's good to know I'm visible on all the platforms, isn't it? Anyway, I think that's all I have to say about the plexiglass sheets. Just seriously, they are worth investing in. So again, whether you're trying to figure out size or scale of quilting, it's a good way to do it. It's honestly a fine way to practice your doodling because it's super easy to erase. Someone was asking me the other day if I have any tips for practicing quilting because her eye keeps getting distracted by piecing and she's having difficulty just quilting the same thing over top of all the piecing. This might be one good way to practice that. Just lay your plexi sheet so you're still seeing all those seams and blocks and prints and just practice drawing right over top of them. And eventually your eye just becomes so accustomed to that. Like, I don't even think about that anymore. I'm so used to quilting regardless of placement on the quilt. But I can understand that takes a little practice to get to that point. So your plexi sheet is a great way to do that. Yeah, low barrier to entry. It's just a great way, low risk way to be trying out designs. So let me just see one more time if there are any questions before we go. Misty from Tampa, how's Mr. B? He's doing fine. He's actually not in the studio this afternoon. That's my black cat if you're new here. He's often right at my feet when I'm recording these, very often. Okay, let me just say again, I am coming live each and every day through the month of April with machine quilting topics and tips. If you're enjoying these, I'd sure appreciate a thumbs up or share with your friends. They can watch them on YouTube, on Facebook, or on Instagram. I'm going live on all the places. So you're welcome to email me with questions if you have them or topics that you'd like to see discussed, and I'll try and tuck them in. Susan at StitchedBySusan.com. So this is leading up to the re-release of my freehand quilting masterclass later this month. But regardless of whether or not that masterclass is for you, I hope that you'll find some great benefit from all these topics that have to do with either machine quilting at the long arm or at the domestic sewing machine. Tomorrow, I believe the topic is going to be the best starting supplies that you need. And I think I'll start with the domestic sewing machine. So quilting at your domestic or sit-down machine, what are some of the basic supplies that you need? And then Tuesday, the next day, I'll go into what do I think are some of the essentials or basics when you're starting at the long arm. So check back in for those. I hope to make them more morning time, Pacific time. That is usually more convenient for me, but Sunday, other things were going on today, so it's much later in the day. Anyway, check back, have the notifications turned on, and hopefully those platforms will let you know whenever I am coming live as well. Thanks for joining me today, and I will catch up with you tomorrow. I need some closing music as I'm finishing this off.